One that has stuck with me forever was actually before, when I first got on the 125s, before having to get back onto the 80.
Okay.
When I first turned pro, I was doing a Saturday saddleback. We always did Saturday saddleback because they ran 45-minute motos.
45-minute motos?
45-minute motos
shit.
back in the day. And just the pros did that. I remember sitting on the line, and it was like a race. Barnett was there. There was a lot of people there. And Barnett was like the 125 national champion, for Suzuki back in the day and stuff. And that being my track, the first moto, I hole shot and was gone. Just yarded everybody.
Wow.
And just left them. And got back to the box van, and I was just cockier than hell. I mean, I'm 15 years old. I'm just talking shit. Just, this guy needs to retire, and this and that. What's he doing? And second moto, get off the gate, I hole shot. And I'm thinking, okay, I got this. I walked away the first moto. And next thing I know, Barnett's running me down. And he leveled me. Just fucking KO'd me. I mean, I couldn't even finish the moto. The bike was so bent. He hit me so hard, the bike was just twisted and bent. But he came over afterwards, after the race was done, and he said, you know what? He goes, if you didn't run your mouth between motos, he goes, I probably wouldn't even have been able to catch you. He goes, I was so pissed at you between motos. He goes, I had to come out there and teach you a lesson. He goes, you have to learn a little respect. You got to pay your dues and all this stuff. And, that's, that was one that I learned the hard way.
Yeah, man. The old dog teaching the new dog some tricks, man. Some respect, actually.
Yeah, so,
That's cool.
So I either had, if I was going to talk shit, I had to be a lot tougher.
It was crazy. Looking back at the CMC Nationals, I didn't realize what that actually was. I mean, you guys would have all the top pros from, Bailey, Ward, Johnson, Glover. They would all go to the Golden State Nationals to get ready for the season.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be. Golden State was the warm-up. That was the training and testing grounds that we used to use. We didn't have the year before, whatever. We raced all up until December, and that's what we used to get ready for the season. Was the Golden State. And literally, we had all day Sunday was only pro day. It was so big that we had so many pro riders on Sundays. I mean, all three pro classes had qualifiers every weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
I noticed in the main events, because they naturally don't show all the qualifiers, but the main events were 40-man gates, it looked like.
They were stacked. I mean, and it was the 250 class had, Ricky Johnson, Johnny O'Mara, Jeff Ward. I mean, that was the warm-up grounds. That's where we started, our pros. I mean, I was a cocky kid. I knew what I could do, and especially saddleback. That was my place. That was my track. So I'd run my mouth, and I'd always, get bit in the ass for it too. Someone would always come back and get me for it. So,
that's life though, right?
Yeah, it's made me who I am today.
For sure, man.
Yep. 86 or 87 that I lost my. I think it was 80. It was right then when I lost that year I lost my ride with Suzuki. Okay. Because I wouldn't cut my hair. Really? Yeah, I was one of their top riders and stuff, and I had a blue mohawk, and the Japanese called me in one day and said, we want the clean cut, California sportsman image, and I just kind of laughed and went, yeah, right, whatever. Yeah, fired me. Holy shit! Yep. So you were out. I was out. So 87, that's when you got picked up by the Cagiva factory. Yeah, like halfway through the year, I went in, signed my deal with Cagiva. And that's when we did the Golden State and started going everything that way. And I went to Seattle, and I was passing. I ended up jumping between like Glover and Johnson, like in a rhythm section, and came down and one of them hooked my throttle cable. Oh shit! And pulled it, and so my throttle stuck, and there's no stopping it whatsoever. Yeah. Hit the berm and landed up in the grandstands and everything. And that's when I said, I'm done. I'm not riding this no more. It's a sketch. Yeah, it was just scared the shit out of me. Yeah, naturally. And so I gave that back to them, and then they told me that they didn't have enough money to go do the nationals and stuff. And so I was going to go and do Gainesville and Daytona, do the first outdoor and Daytona Supercross as a privateer. I went and bought a Suzuki because at that time Suzuki had the best contingency program. for a privateer rider back then, if you won a national, Suzuki paid like $50,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
But you had to be a privateer. You had to own the title to the bike.
So you weren't a factory rider?
Yeah. So you weren't supported by anybody, you know. And what's the chances of somebody doing that? But it went down. It went down to like 10th place, which I could do no problem. You know, I could make some money.
You could be a top 10 guy, no problem.
So I ended up going to Gainesville and Daytona, and I think I went like 4-3 or something like that, the 250 class. Daytona, I was leading the main, and the power valve snapped on me going into the whoops and endoed.
Yep. Yeah, I've had
right
that
going
happen.
into the whoops. So I went over the bars. That ended that one. But when I was in Daytona, that's when I got a call from somebody in Italy to come over and race in Europe.
I got to ask you about this crazy Supercross that I saw. It wasn't really, they called it Supercross, but it was in a velodrome.
Hard cross.
Dude, it was pretty rad though. They had like these, you know, the same velodrome.
Yeah, and the bicycle velodromes.
You were launching the finish line jump.
Yeah, hard cross.
All the way into the corner, every lap.
Well, I had to get past the plywood that they put down because originally where I was landing, the linkage from the shock went through the floor.
Oh, fuck.
And literally I put holes in the floor because they didn't have Supercross suspension over there.
Yeah.
And when I tried to tell them what I wanted, you know, they just, nah. So I was riding outdoor suspension on that. So you just flatland, the linkage went all the way through the floor, so they put the plywood. I'm like,
that's why the plywood. Yeah, I was wondering, like, what's up with that? But you were landing all the way into the corner.
I was going all the way to the corner if I could.
That was pretty gnarly.
You know, it was just kind of like fucking rollerball. I mean, it was fun. You just go out there and just smash into people. I mean,
it was crazy looking.
The gate was like this and went down. So I mean, you just wheelied over the gate.
I noticed you were doing that. I mean, all you guys were, but you had the hot ticket.
Yeah, just wheelied and cut everybody off. You know, and it turned. It was funny because like they did like a bowl turn. They had the wall berm where you rode the wall, and then it turned and went up into the stands. Like they took a row of seats out and put rubber over the steps, and went up, and then we turned and went down the row right next to a bar. And literally, there's people standing there holding their beers and stuff, high-fiving you as you're coming by, and.
That's so fucking awesome.
Crazy, you know?
And then you come down the stairs. It looked like they just had stairs.
Right back down the stairs.
Yeah.
Right back into the stadium.
Into the course. And
then we do the finish line jump that you're talking about. And then it would go out of the stadium and then go down a flight of stairs into the basement of the place. And like we had a whole course down in there that nobody saw. And that's where it got nasty because you get down there, nobody could see you down there. There's no flaggers, nothing down there. So like if I was behind anybody, man, I'd just straight run everybody to the walls.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah, it just turned into smash them up down there.
All right, so now racing in Europe, obviously the culture is a lot deeper there. The roots are a lot deeper because that's where motocross came from. Did you notice that going to the GPs and seeing how the fan base was, or were they? Because I don't know, I've never been to Europe before. Was it a lot deeper? Were the fans a lot more exciting or excited?
I had always heard stories growing up that there's been fans that would get in the way of other riders and stuff for their favorite riders, for their country riders and stuff. I heard like George Gilbert and people would jump in front of other riders so they'd crash and he'd win. Mm-hmm. You know, I've heard all these stories growing up. And when I got there, I actually saw it.
Really?
I mean, they are die-hard fans. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people would show up to these races. Wow. I mean, and they would show up there on Wednesday. Wednesday. And they would be camped out. They'd be sleeping in little tents, and they would have just cases of beer, and they would just die-hard fans. I mean, the first GP that I won was in Holland, and it was my second year when I was riding the KTMs. And I lived in the town that I lived in Holland, in Oss, was also the town that David Strybos came from and John Vandenberg came from. And both of those were previous, 125 champions. And this race was in their town. It's their backyard. Oh, wow. And I'm coming around leading the first moto. And literally like coming through a section, and I got probably a good 3-4 handfuls of sand right in the face.
Really?
And I'm thinking, then it starts thinking, in the back of my head, like, fuck, they're going to lay on the track, they're going to tackle me, what's going to happen next time I come around? I come around the next lap, And the whole row of that fence was all American military.
No way.
I saw probably 15 American flags, and it was all military guys standing there, you know, in their camo stuff, you know, with the flag, and just waving me on and going.
Really?
And literally, they came to the truck after the race and stuff, and they said, "Don't worry, we got you. No one will ever throw dirt in your face again."
Wow.
Yeah, and they stood in front of the podium and everything when I won the race and all that. It was cool.
That is cool.
So yeah, I got to see it firsthand.
That's wild, man. I got to ask you a question about a French GP that I saw, where you showed up and it was basically, you said, I feel like I showed up at a freaking American Supercross race, and people were just weeding themselves everywhere. I think there was like 11 riders.
That was Belgium.
Oh, that Belgium? Okay.
That was Belgium. That was in '91 in Belgium. And when we showed up, yeah, the track was gnarly. I mean, big old jumps and stuff. And
you got pretty hurt. I mean, you actually ended up going to the hospital. You had a big old busted lip. And
yeah. It was like a cliff jump. You dropped into a little drop down area, and as you came out, it was just like a cliff jump. It was completely vertical.
Wow.
And then had enough room to grab a gear, almost a gear, 2 gears, and then had a tabletop, like an 80-foot tabletop. And I was jumping out of it and getting really close to the tabletop. Well, one time I just, you know what, fuck this, I can get over that tabletop. And I hit the thing, and it was just 4th gear wrapped out on my works bike. And I overjumped the tabletop by like 20 feet.
Oh,
shit. It was like dropping from, 60, 70 feet up in the air. And when I just landed, I bit through my lip and, just messed myself up pretty good. But in Europe, like Saturday when you're practicing, I still had to do qualifications and all that stuff. I can't go to the hospital. If I go to the hospital, I can't come back and ride.
Oh, shit.
So I put, 10 staples in my lip myself, in my trailer, taped it up, went back out in second practice, and told my mechanic, I said, stand down there by that jump. I said, I'm going to do it. When I come around, I'm going to do that jump. If I crash again, pick me up. I'm going to do it again because that's going to win that race. And so I went out, and everyone's sitting around the thing, and I dropped in there first lap, just and just hucked the thing, just laid her down flat, and just downsided it perfect right into the corner.
Oh, wow.
And it was like 7 seconds a lap faster just doing that one jump.
Holy shit.
And I did it through that and did in qualifying and stuff. And it wasn't until after qualifications and all that was done that I got to go to the hospital. They took the staples out in the hospital and stitched me up.
Okay.
And then come back to race the next day. and then the other group and other people saw me do it. And a couple guys tried to go for it and really got hurt. A couple people got really, really hurt because of it. So the next day, all the riders got together and just kind of boycotted, I guess, or protested and said, hey, this is dangerous. There's 1 or 2 guys that is doing this jump, and those 1 or 2 guys are going to walk away. So, even it out. So they just made it more of a kind of Evel Knievel jump. You just launch to the top of the tabletop, and
Okay.
So they just made it so everybody could do it.
Made it safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what it was about. Basically, we all just got together and just said, let's do it, make it safe.
That's cool.
So, yeah. And the 2 guys, me and the other guy that jumped it, basically knew that if there was anybody around us, we were going to land on them,
Yeah.
Because it was so much airtime, and it was
Dangerous.
It was a full cliff jump. I mean, it was completely vertical, and I was hitting it, 4th gear, mid throttle, on a Works 250, and it was big.
It sounds big.
Yeah, it was big. I mean, literally, there was a cliff, and people stand on top of the cliff. There's pictures of it, and they're just looking up like this at me,
Wow.
And they're standing on top of a huge cliff. Yeah, it's crazy. So,
holy crap, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's intense. All right, so I got to ask you about when you moved from the KTM team, you got picked up by factory Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
You probably were pretty stoked, I'm assuming, going, hey, I'm going back to kind of my roots, back in the States. How was that, going and testing the factory Suzuki for the first time and seeing how the bike was?
Well, I mean, I was stoked to go back to a Japanese team, and originally I was trying to make a deal with them, or what I thought our deal was going to be was that I basically was going to bring my mechanic and my stuff and keep everything the way it was at KTM, just changing colors pretty much. And well, when I went back to Belgium after a Golden State and all that, nothing turned out like it was supposed to. They basically just lied to me, and it turned into a big shit show. They ended up giving me a mechanic. My number one mechanic for me was the tire changer the year before for Pekka Valkonen, the factory Yamaha team. All he did was change tires. That's all he was allowed to do. And that was my main mechanic. His backup mechanic for him was Stefan's father, Harry Everts, the past world champion, was my second mechanic.
Stefan's father.
Yeah, Stefan's father. So, I mean, I was pretty much doomed to lose from the get-go.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, and it just got worse from there on out. I mean, just every time we went to the race, it just got worse and worse and worse. So it was just a shitty year.
All right, so that year was pretty much a washout.
Yeah, well, the only thing that made that whole year was, when I came home. At the end of the season, I basically told Suzuki of Belgium they can go fuck themselves. They told me I can go fuck myself. And Gabor's told me that he wanted everything back, all my practice bikes, everything back to Suzuki America and stuff like that. And I told him absolutely not. I said, you don't get anything back. I said, you still owe me, four checks. I said, I don't get anything. You get nothing back till I get fully paid. And I went in and talked to Mitch Payton and said, hey, I would like to race in the States next year. I want to come home. He goes, well, I got to see what you can do, I know what you do during Golden State and all that stuff, but, I got to see what you can do against the big boys. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I only run a 125 class, so, do you have a 125? And I said, it's so beat up. The thing has been just roached. I mean, that's what I rode every day when I was home was my 125. And
NRM 125?
Old, 92 Suzuki 125 just roached. He said, bring it in, let's see what we can do, and we'll clean it up. And he freshened up the motor and all that stuff and did the suspension, all this stuff. And my buddy, Delgatti just said, hey, I got a van, and it was the old Ford Aerostar van that at that time, he had it lowered on the ground. I mean, absolutely no suspension in it. The thing was only big enough to hold one bike, and we put it in backwards. Literally the rear fender's right between the two of us. I had 2 gas cans, a gear bag, a toolbox, a couple spare parts. Mm-hmm. And it took us, almost a week to get to Pennsylvania from here.
You guys had some good times.
Yeah, we stopped at every place you could imagine on the way there. So it was a road trip. I should have been more serious about going there, but it was, kind of a road trip, and we get there and ended up doing really good, rode the wheels off the bike. So
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. The first moto I kind of got a mediocre start and came through and bobbled and crashed and caught up to 4th. And then the second moto, I ended up hole shotting going wire to wire, against all the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, you threw down on Emig. I know you ended up winning the title. Laraco was there. I mean,
Hughes was there. There was a whole.
It was stacked.
It was a stacked
Steel City National.
Yeah, it was a stacked gate, and so it was a good deal. And the best thing about it was that I had actually even made that 125 look identical to my race bikes over in Europe.
Oh, really?
So I got to call over to Europe and tell them basically, because I got paid for wins, and I wore the same team gear and everything like that at Steel City. So I actually ended up getting a $75,000 bonus check for winning Steel City.
No way.
For winning that moto.
So you wore the Biaffi gear and all that good stuff.
All the team colors, everything. I had the Biaffi stickers on the bike, everything perfect. The first person I called was my mom to tell her that I'd done that. And then I called my manager. Mm-hmm. And my manager over in Europe, and she's like, what gear were you wearing? Because she knew I hated the Biaffi gear. Mm-hmm. I hate it with a passion. And she's all, what gear are you wearing? I said, team gear. She goes, really? Send me a picture of the bike, right away, give me a picture of the bike, this and that. And as soon as we faxed her one over from the race and everything, and she just started laughing. She goes, you're going to get paid. Gabor's is going to hate you.
75 grand, huh?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So we went out and kind of partied it up that night, and I called Gabor's, and it was like 3 a.m. his time, and I called him on his private line, his house phone and everything, and a little 3 sheets to the wind, and let him know he owes me some money.
I know you were in the middle of your championship, You were going against, was it Bobby Moore back then?
No, it was between me and Parker. It came down between me and Parker for the title.
Okay, and it was in Japan, right?
Yep.
So he came over to just kind of race in front of his Japanese crew, or how'd that all go?
No, he was a hired gun from Honda.
Okay.
It come down to it, and I think...
Trampus was a Honda rider.
Trampus rode for Honda of Europe and Honda of Italy, and I was the only KTM on the track. I was the only factory KTM rider at the time, and we were just a couple points away from each other going into that last round. So Honda America or Honda Japan paid Stanton to come over to Japan and be a blocker.
Wow.
And basically, he did his job. I mean, the first moto, I whole shot it. Like in time qualification, I was the fastest there. No problem. Starting qualification, all that, I was the fastest. The first moto, I whole shotted, and I led it for half the race or something. Bobbled, Stanton got by me, and we finished 1-2. I was right on his rear fender.
Okay.
The second moto, I whole shotted, and he was behind me, and we went the 45 minutes, 1-2 like that. And Parker was way back. Parker crashed on the start, and basically when I came around and got the 2-lap board through the pit area, his mechanic's pit board basically said, time, take him out.
Wow.
And about 3 turns later, it was just a big outside turn. The track, they prepped the track between every race, so that it had one line really. Mm-hmm. And I was going wide around the turn that I do every lap, and I could just hear his bike, just screaming. He just squared off and just
T-boned you.
Just straight T-boned me. And I didn't go down, but it knocked me hard enough to where he got in front of me. Mm-hmm. And only having a lap and a half left to go, I could only do so much. I caught back up to him, but I couldn't, do anything. So yeah, Parker beat me by 3 points. But, well, it didn't end there. I mean, he went to the podium with a black eye and a busted lip.
That's right. I remember you saying you tuned him up a little bit. Yeah,
a couple guys got in my ear and stuff and went over and got in his face, and, he had to have security stand around him at the podium. But that night, my mechanic from KTM kind of got in my head a little bit and said, hey, there's still some rounds left, in the States. Mm-hmm. Why don't we talk to KTM and see about getting a Works 500 sent home and you going in and doing Washougal? Mm-hmm. Well, now it was coming down between Jean-Michel Bayle and Stanton for the title. Mm-hmm. So we ended up pulling the box fan in back to back to Stanton's and just sat there and just stared at Stanton. And I walked over, and me and Jean-Michel Bayle were friends. We could having a French license and doing all that stuff and being a French citizen kind of thing. We were friends. Mm-hmm. And I went straight over and told him right there, right in front of Stanton, I said, you will be champion today. I said, if I have anything to say about it, you will be the champion after today. I crashed. Like every moto, I crashed off the start and stuff, but came through. I podiumed every moto.
Oh, wow.
And literally, like every time I got up behind him, he would just wad it. I didn't have to do anything because he did it to himself.
Yeah.
So, but
He's got in his head a little bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, it comes around, Jean-Michel Bayle was 500 champion that year.
So you raced some local stuff and then doing some off-road stuff locally, basically, but nothing, you weren't contracted with any teams or anything like that, right?
No, I was kind of a hired rider, because the only team that hired me, that contracted me at that time to do off-road was IMS.
Okay.
And we did a bunch of IMS stuff, and did all the Grand Prix and all that. And but I was pretty much a hired guy. If somebody needed a teammate or something that wasn't afraid to, twist the throttle, mm-hmm. I was the guy,
Okay.
So.
Sweet. So you did the 24-hour Glen Helen and all that.
Yeah, I won it.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was.
What about Baja? Did you ever go down to Baja?
I did Baja and did all that too, and was part of the factory Honda team down there, and yeah, did it all.
Wow, man. You got to have some Baja stories then, huh?
A couple here and there. I mean, Baja is Baja. It's a whole different adventure. It's crazy down there. So,
yeah, big time.
It's crazy. I mean, it's hard to explain what it is until you go down there and do it. Even being a spectator, that's how you get to see what Baja is about. There's people that come out from nowhere, There's not a house around, a shack around, there's nothing around, but there's, 300 people lining the course in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. Don't understand. I don't know where they come from, how they got there, but they're there, and they're there rooting you on, and
Yep.
And then you come around the corner and run into a tractor, and there's all kinds of crazy shit happens in Baja.
Yeah, for sure.
Donkeys jumping across the track, and just it's Mexico.
What year do you think that kind of fizzled out and you started, going another direction in your life?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. What was it? I want to say in probably the early 2000s. I just started, just getting into a rut and just, doing some bad things. So I don't know. The excitement that I wasn't racing and all that was all gone, and I just started hanging out with the wrong people and doing the wrong things and going the wrong places, and, got myself wrapped up in some trouble.
Yeah, hey, people say it's wrong, but honestly, from my perspective, it's just experience to me.
Yeah.
You've had a hell of an experience in life so far.
And that's what it was. I mean, I made some bad decisions, I made some mistakes, and I had to pay the price for it.
Exactly.
And that's what it was. It was all part of the learning lessons in life.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't be able to sit here today and talk about all the things that I've done if I didn't do them.
Exactly.
So whether they're good or bad or right or wrong, it's how you come through it.
In my book, it's just experience, man.
Exactly.
And you have a hell of a lot of experience, from whatever people might label it, good, bad, terrible, whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, and it was such a small part of my life that I went down that road. It was very, very small part of my life, and it was just in my own head and thinking, I guess I was just missing all that excitement stuff. I don't know. There's no excuse for what I did. It's what I did. It was just mistakes that I made, and I got in trouble for it, and paid the price, and you need to do what you do when you get in trouble.
Exactly. Hey man, you pick yourself up again though, you know what I mean? So now you've gotten into a completely different direction in your life. You're now a barber. You cut hair and stuff. When did you kind of get to that point where you went, you know what, I think I want to completely change the direction of my life, and I want to get into, cutting hair and doing that?
I knew when I was sitting in a cell, when I was sitting in a 6x9 cell, that I had to get completely away from certain people and certain things, and if I didn't, I was going to spend the rest of my life there. And either that or I was going to end up dead, one of the two. And when I was sitting in there, my daughter graduated from high school and went on to college and got her cosmetology license. And she's the reason why I cut hair, is that literally she got into it and she loved it and said, hey Dad, this is something you can do. Maybe down the road, this is something we can do together. We can save up and get a shop together and stuff. And, it's a lot of fun and all this stuff, and I'm already thinking, I have to tear up the phone book. I have to get rid of all these people. When I get out, the only thing that's going to keep me from coming back in is staying away from everybody. I really got to be careful of who I make friends with or who I talk to and stuff like that, because I can very easily go right back to it, and I don't want to. And so that was the big thing, when my daughter said that to me, it like brought tears to my eyes, that she actually loved her dad enough and respected me enough that she wanted to do something with me, and work with me and stuff like that. And so literally, I paroled in November and I started school in January.
Really?
The first week of January, when I got out, within those 2 months, I had done all the paperwork and everything to get it taken care of, and got into Paul Mitchell and, to cut hair.
Hey, and quite honestly, man, from someone that's come from a family that has had similar, experiences and haven't been able to pull themselves out.
Yeah.
It takes a really strong individual to be able to pull themselves out and say, hey, I've seen the error in my way, and I don't want you to go that way. So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's tough.
I compliment you for being able to do this.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, and it's tough. I mean, I'm an addict. I wake up every day. I'm going to be an addict. That's life, and that's what I deal with every day, and that's the choice I choose every day, whether I go this way or this way. And that's why I threw away the phone book. That's why I don't connect with any of those people anymore. And it may be a little selfish for me to do this, but it's my life now, you know. And I'm a barber. I love what I'm doing now, and I got to stay away from certain people, certain places, and you know, because it'll lead me right to it, and can't do it. So
I'm with you, Healy. 100%. Cheers to that. My beer and your water. Fucking A. Oh.